Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining Young Digital Managers Association's second session of the leadership series. As many of you know, Young Digital Managers Association, or YDMA for short, is an initiative of CIO Association of India, which is the largest association of CIOs anywhere in the world. It's perhaps the only association which is for CIOs and is run entirely by CIOs with the charter to develop the skills and competencies of CIOs. And YDMA's charter is to develop the skills, competencies, and the behavioral traits of the next generation of leaders, those who report to CIOs today, but over the next few years will become CIOs and digital leaders in their own right. This initiative was launched only about 2 to 3 months back, but already there are about 500 plus members, and our goal is to grow this to 1,000 in the next 2 months, and eventually to several thousand over the course of next 1 or 2 years. We will do many initiatives under YDMA, which relate to development of skills. We have already partnered with the All India Management Association to train the digital leaders on leadership skills. And we will undertake many other similar initiatives. As part of our charter and agenda, every month we hold one session with a prominent business leader to gain their insights on their leadership from their leadership journey, which will help the members of YDMA in their own, the leadership development over the coming years. And in this particular edition, we are very pleased to welcome Mr. Manoj Chuk, who's a senior IT leader with over 4 decades of experience in the Indian as well as the regional IT landscape. He's played country and regional leadership roles in several companies, including the global leading companies like EMC and Cisco. He also played a stellar role in India's GCC sector by launching 2 of India's first centers, and thereby put India on a trajectory to become a world leader in this space. He then went on to join Mahindra Group as President of Public Affairs, as well as a member of the Group Executive Board. He's also on boards of several companies and mentors and coaches senior executives. We were just speaking before the session started, and he mentioned that his collective experience across industries and roles is about 41 years. I mean, that's probably more than some people on this call, definitely more than mine, even though I have gray hair. So what he brings today to this conversation is insights from his leadership journey over that period of time. We have asked him to do the impossible, which is to condense all of that in about 20 minutes of his 15 to 20 minutes of his opening remarks. And then, of course, we'll open up for Q&A. So if you have any questions for him, please type them as they arise in the chat space. And after his opening remarks, I'll pick them up and ask them on your behalf. So with that, without any further ado, I'll hand over the floor to Manoj. Manoj, over to you.
Pranavji, thank you very much. And it's a great honor, great pleasure to be with all of you here this evening. Again, I'd like to thank Umeshji as well for requesting me to come and spend a few minutes with all you bright, young, enthusiastic professionals. I would say fellow professionals from the IT industry. Very, very good afternoon, good evening to all of you. And I think that there is no greater pleasure than to spend time with next generation leaders. And I truly believe so because each one of you today is at the front line of driving digital transformation and navigating perhaps the biggest technological disruption that we have seen, and I can say including myself, over the last many years. And I'm very confident that you all will steer and shape the future of your organizations very, very successfully as we go along. In terms of the opportunity for me to speak to you all here today, while I have many, many stories to tell, but given the paucity of time, I'll actually pick one story which I think has some bearing with perhaps what each one of us will go through as we look at transitions and transformations going forward in our individual roles. And I go back to a time when many, many years ago, I was asked to take over a business which had been making a loss for the prior 10 years before I had taken it over. And I was called into the room and I was told, look, here's an opportunity for you to prove yourself. And I'm sure the same happens to each one of you, where your leaders come in and provide or ask you to take on opportunities where you can prove yourself. And I was told that, look, we have a very simple task for you. We want you to double the revenue in the next 12 months, and we want you to double the margin from the business in the next 12 months. I looked at them bewildered and I said, for last 10 years you have been at it, you've not been able to make a profit. Now not only are you asking me to make a profit, you're saying double the margin that was expected from the business, which we never made, and then double the size of the business itself. So I said it's a near impossible task to double on both these important parameters. And they said, well, that's the task, and go ahead and do it. A few days later, I was asked to present the progress that I had made. And the first thing that I did was uh, that I started presenting my analysis of where things had gone wrong in the previous 10 years. The CEO stopped me in the middle of my presentation as I was on the third slide and said, Manoj, we have asked you to build the future. We have not asked you to analyze the past. Please trust us that we have already analyzed the past before handing over the business to you. I was taken aback because all my slides were about what had gone wrong and what we had to look and how we had to sort it out, etc., etc., and nothing about how I was going to deal with the present moment and build the future. So I stopped and I requested for a little bit more time. And then I came back to my team and I told them, look, guys, while I'm new to the business, many of you have been a part of this business. And I am shocked and surprised that with such bright people like all of you, such brilliant technologists like all of you, we've not been able to make a profit. We've not been able to become successful. And I decided that day that I would sit and I would keep my ego aside. I would keep my rank aside and I would listen to what everyone had to say. And it was very interesting, the suggestions that came to me from the junior most members of my team to the senior most members of my team. And the suggestions were very simple. A suggestion that came was our cost of providing service was rising because almost at every customer situation and location, we had to fly in engineers because what we had actually delivered was not working. Now, that's familiar to many of you. I'm sure you see that with your technology partners as well, that they come and struggle on your side to deliver on the projects that you've asked them to come and do for you. They also told me that the bill of material and the costing was very high. And as I went around, I said, look, are there good alternates in terms of can we get memory from different sources as an example? Can we get storage systems from other OEMs and so on and so forth? And the answer each time was, of course we can, of course we can. And I said, look, if we can do all this, then why haven't we done it for the last 10 years? And they said, well, we don't know why we didn't do it, but the fact is there are alternates and we can relook at the bill of material. A big learning that I had, which I want to share with you, is that by taking a systems approach, I was able to understand all the different areas where if I was able to drive some level of transformation, one would see significant success. In the area of looking for alternate bill of material, I went to the materials leader, and you know what he told me? He said, Manoj, I would always have been happy to help your team, but they never came and asked me for help. And when they did come and ask me for help, I said, you need to fund my travel because I need to go around, meet these vendors, because without meeting them, how are things going to happen? I said, that's simple. I give you approval, go travel. My biggest issue was in terms of customer support. And when I went to my colleagues on customer support, I said, look, this is a very simple problem. before we ship stuff to the customer, why can't we integrate and test? Now, you would say, Manoj, that's the most logical thing to do. Our expectation is anyone who's supplying stuff to us is testing it. But people are doing unit testing. They were not doing system testing, and something which each one of you is familiar with. So I said, if we have to do the full system testing, what do we need? The answer was simple. We need power supply. We need a bench test. uh, and we need a couple of engineers who can integrate and test. And we need 2 or 3 people in logistics to unpack and pack. How difficult could that be? I went to the person who was responsible for services. He was working out of another building. Nobody knew which building it was, because whenever there was a meeting, they would summon him and he would land up. And I said, no, I want to go to his office. With great difficulty, I found his office. And as I walked into his building, he was very, very surprised to see me. He said, nobody ever from business has ever walked into my office. It's normally I who am walking into their office. His name was Ramesh. A nice cup of tea. And then he said, Manoj, what brings you here? I said, Ramesh, you would have read the note. I am now taking charge of this business. I really need your help. And he said, what help do you need? And I said, exactly what I've just shared. Without batting an eyelid, he said, Manoj, done. I said, Ramesh, where can you give me this infrastructure? And he said, okay, I'll give it to you in Hyderabad. I think I've got some extra spare space, some few engineers, and so on and so forth. So I said, when can I start? He said, well, we were in Bangalore at the time. He said, you can fly in tomorrow and you can get going. We never looked back. Customer satisfaction went up way high. We were able to look for alternate sources, and we were able to bring our costs down. Within 12 months, our revenue had doubled, our margins had doubled. My lessons were very important in this journey. And my lesson was, when you have to do transformation, the first thing that you need to do is not have an ego. The reason why my predecessor was not able to do what I was able to do, because my predecessor had a big ego. Oh, the services guy has to do what I ask him to do. The services guy had all the ideas in terms of how he could help. And he said, well, this guy wants to act as a boss. He wants to give me an instruction. I'll just follow instruction. The person who was responsible for materials said, well, the guys are not coming to me, not talking properly to me. I have given them the idea once. I'm not going to sit across the table, bang the fist on their table and say, look, give me the approval to travel. Give me the approval to go and evaluate. I will evaluate alternate vendors and I'll go make it happen. Why should I do it? And the lesson, the most important lesson, was when I had to do this transformation with a very open mind and heart. I listened to everyone on the team. I didn't just consider that I was the fountainhead of all wisdom. And I think these learnings stayed with me in subsequent years when I had the honor and opportunity of leading many, many very large businesses in the technology space. These learnings remained with me. And I think that when you are at the forefront of driving transition and transformation, it is very, very important for us to understand that you have to take a strategic approach rather than a tactical approach. You have to take a non-transactional approach to trying to solve the problem. And I think what I just shared with you is an example, a true story from the chapter of my own experience. It is, as a technologist, our natural inclination that moment a problem is thrust upon us, what we do is very quickly get down to a Pareto analysis. Okay, let's try and look at all the variables. Let us see which is the variable, which if by solving, we can get the highest impact, and we straight away dive into problem solving. I think it's very, very important for us to understand that even if it is a technology business, even if it is a technology solution, are we really taking a much, much larger approach to solving that problem? Are we taking a holistic approach, or are we just straight away diving into it from a tactical perspective? And I think for me personally, that was a big shift moving from being just a manager to being a leader. And I think it's true for each one of you. As you look at your careers, how do I change from being a digital manager to a digital leader? How are you going to look at yourself? Are you going to look at yourself as somebody who's going to manage digital projects or AI projects? Or are you going to shape the digital future of the company? Do you see yourself as an IT expert, or do you see yourself as a business enabler? And I think as you look at your roles going forward in the future, you must see your roles beyond execution and think like a strategist. Because I think when you look at leadership, it is a lot about influencing the decisions, identifying the opportunities, and solving the problems by leveraging people, process, and technology. And I can't stress on the importance of people when one goes through such transitions and transformations. I'm sure the same is true for AI as well. I advise many, many firms. I'm on the boards of many firms. And when I look at AI adoption today, the biggest challenge I have is that a small percentage of employees are really embracing AI, versus the expectation that everyone should at least start dabbling and playing. So people, very, very important. Otherwise, we won't be able to succeed. I think customer centricity, particularly in many of your cases, internal customer centricity is also an important area of focus. Technology is just a means, not an end. And I think the best digital leaders focus in terms of improving those very experiences. And is that where we are spending our time as a leader? I think it's important to be agile. Don't be a follower. Look at what's happening around you. And I think you must embrace experimentation, which I'm sure many of you are doing. And look at all the successful companies around you. They have been pivoting very, very quickly. We need to do the same. The most important lesson is collaboration, breaking down the silos. And this is a big lesson that I learned through the experience that I just shared. It is my belief and my conviction that IT cannot operate in isolation. Business and technology must co create solutions. Technologists must speak the language of finance, marketing, sales, and understand the challenges. And each one of us, digital leaders who engage cross functionally, are the ones who get a seat at the table. Within your organizations, raise your hand and offer yourself as a candidate to join many, if not all, of these cross functional initiatives within your organization. I must say that let us remember that AI is not just about chat GPT and automation. It is importantly about business reinvention. Each one of us knows that AI is going to reshape our industry. How can we use it to create a competitive advantage? And who better than us as technologists to be able to help our businesses to do so? I firmly believe that leadership mindset for the future will depend upon a few mantras. The mantras are: accept the fact that you are not the smartest person on the planet. Learn from whoever you can, whether it's in your team or outside your team. It does not matter if the person is a fresher or a junior member of the team. Don't stand on ego. Don't stand on rank. I think that is unimportant. The important thing is never to stop learning, because the half life of skills, you will agree, is shrinking. So stay curious, stay updated. My second mantra for you is be humble and lead from the front. And last but not least of all is build relationships. Build relationships across the organization. The future of leadership is not about your rank and how high you reach. It is about your ability to bring the smartest people together. I would finally like to say that I firmly believe that each one of you is in a unique position within your organization. You have huge potential to shape the future. Start thinking, start acting like a digital leader. The journey from being a manager to a leader to a business visionary begins with your own initiative. So I'd like to wish each one of you every success. Pranav has given me 15 to 20 minutes. Pranav, I have done it in 19 minutes. I'll give the 1 minute back to you and happy to take questions.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thanks. 18 minutes actually, because I also did the introduction in 1 minute. So thank you for that. Fabulous insights you put on the table, and it is already leading to many very, very fascinating questions. So let me take up the first one which came along, and it's from Deep Chandra. I don't know which company he's with. His question is, what's your suggestion for your uh, when the leaders are leading cross-functional teams, there are bound to be conflicts because they have different priorities. So as a leader in the company, how do you ensure that those conflicts are managed well? How do you manage? You also mentioned cross-functional, collaboration being a key, but how do you manage conflicts which inevitably arise?
I think it's a brilliant question. I'd like to go back to basics. And I see a lot of this in my role being on the boards of several companies. Number one, I think it's very important to understand what is the goal that the organization is trying to achieve. And the goal an organization is trying to achieve is born out of what is the expectation of the firm from its stakeholders, which in turn is born out of the very nature of the industry that the firm is in. So I think we have to begin at the very high level to understand as to why does our firm exist, who does it serve, where is our position within the industry, what are the short term, medium term goals that have been set for us as a business? And these are all known to all of you because they're all articulated with from the all hands and everything else. That's all well known. It kind of trickles down within the organization. And therefore, it becomes very clear to everyone that if we have to grow our revenue, as an example, and AI has to play an incredibly important role in shaping our new services or offerings going forward in the future, who the important stakeholders are who can enable this to happen. I think once we know what the larger goal is, what is the constitution of the team, what are the roles and responsibilities of every individual on the team, as the technology partner, our goal is to be that facilitator, to be that glue, to be that guru where required, to really help everyone understand the value that technology can bring, what technology can do and what it cannot do. The conflict arises when a lot of people are not very clear about what the technology can do, or they have half-baked understanding of how things have to happen. I'll give you a real true story, so I'm taking slightly more time. When PCs first came in this country, I had the honor and opportunity of really delivering them to many people in the government. In fact, I got a LinkedIn post from a very dear friend who said, I don't know whether you remember, but you were the guy who first came in and delivered my PC to me when I was in planning commission. And I remember when I was sitting across the senior government officers at that time, they said, are you trying to tell me that I need to type? This is a QWERTY keyboard. This is the job of my PA who's sitting out. What are you trying to do? Don't you know I'm the joint secretary? And I said, absolutely, I know you're the joint secretary. But the time has come when you have to start using this technology. He says, I don't even know how to type. How can I do anything with this? I said, here is my simple request to you. I have loaded a game called Tic-Tac-Toe. Now you know Tic-Tac-Toe is an interesting game. Let's play a game of Tic-Tac-Toe together. And like this, I have loaded a few games. So when you have some free time, or when you are stressed out, start playing games. Let's start there. And he reminded me of this. And then when I went there 2 weeks later, he said, I've enjoyed the games. Now I'm getting bored. What do I do? I said, there's another software, word processor, right? You can start writing your instructions, etc., rather than putting it on file. Just try it. And so that's how that journey began. I think we need to do the same in the area of AI with cross-functional teams. So we have to take on, we may not be the senior most person in the room, but take on the role where you turn around and say, this is what technology can do today. This is where the limitations are. Given our organization, given our processes, given the knowledge of our people, given the maturity of technology, here are a few things that we can implement and do. and never get into a battle with it. This is a lesson that I learned early in my life. Concede, think about an alternate way, and get back and get things done. I
Yeah.
know how hard it is, but we just need to do it. And if there are specific instances where you need help, please feel free to reach out to me. Once I know your specific situation, I'm sure I'll be able to share my experience with you.
Mhm.
But you need to show leadership. You may not be the leader, but demonstrate leadership in those cross functional meetings for sure.
Yeah. It doesn't mean having the loudest voice.
No,
It means being able to drive consensus and move things forward.
well said, Pranay.
Great point. Another interesting question from Piyush Gupta, and the question is, how do you see the role of digital product managers or leaders with significant work experience with the advent of AI? Because experience will become less and less relevant with the advancement of AI. So how do people who achieved, who acquired a lot of experience remain relevant going forward?
Respectfully, I have an alternate opinion. I have worked 43 years now. When I sit in the room with young people and we brainstorm around AI, I suddenly find that my experience is very, very valuable. And the reason I see this is because I can see the end process that we are trying to build through my own experience, the end goal that we are trying to achieve through my own experience. For example, I find that when people are looking at AI, they're looking at a very specific, narrow task that they are trying to solve. Example, coding. Okay,
Mhm.
how can I use AI to do coding? If I do coding, if I've got 10 people on my team today, then tomorrow maybe I'll get a 30% improvement in productivity. But somebody with experience like me comes in and says, yeah, coding is one part of it. But what are we really trying to build in terms of an end-to-end platform solution, etc.? And what problem are we trying to solve? And how are we planning to compete more effectively going forward in the future? So we are trying to see the end goal. And when you look at the end goal, then that helps you to relook at the entire process, look at every element within the value chain, and then see the impact that technology can bring in every aspect of the value chain. Example, if you look at many organizations, they have automated, for example, their lead to order process. Then organizations have a separate value chain, if you will, from the time they get the order till the time they collect the cash. Now, with AI coming in, you can turn around and say, so instead of looking at the problem in terms of two sets of value chains or two sets of processes, maybe I look at it as a single process, which is lead to cash. Because now AI can allow me to do this much quicker, much more efficiently, and also drive insights across the entire value chain. There are firms which I support which have got products, ERP, supply chain, different sets of products. And my question is the person who is using supply chain for efficiency, how are you helping that person drive growth for the business through efficiencies from an ERP perspective? Because AI is going to be able to shorten that cycle much more as compared to what it has done in the past. So, how do you now link your efficiency with your growth and drive a clear differentiation for the customer? So, I think just relooking at the problem from an experience lens helps a lot. Of course, the younger guys will know the tools infinitely better than me. If I know 3 tools, they know 30 tools. If I tell them, look, let us use Crew AI for, uh, for going and building an agentic AI uh, workflow, they'll turn around and say, oh, instead of Crew, let's use something else because it has these three benefits. Or we say, okay, let's go and look at XYZ LLM. They will say, oh, but ABC is better for these use cases. So they're very good understanding of the specific technology pieces. But I think experience will come in when you have to look at the holistic process and take a systems approach, because experience will tell you where you made mistakes in the past. And new world technology will tell you where you will not go wrong this time.
Yeah. I agree. Very pertinent. And another interesting question is about how do you prioritize when there are several opportunities to innovate using technology? Then how do you allocate resources across them? Any broad framework or any ideas on that?
Yeah, I would say choose two areas. One area is where you get a broader set of employees to participate. Because at the end of the day, long term, you're going to be successful in AI if you get the buy in from most people within the organization. Now, that's not going to give you an ROI. You might say, Manoj, that's not giving me an ROI. So, for example, prompt engineering. If I go and help employees in my organization across different functions to learn 6 or 7 prompts which are important to their function and get them to use those prompts and I help them to choose the right LLM, that may not give you an ROI from a business perspective overnight, but you will at least get a large part of the organization to start using AI, start dabbling and playing with AI. And if nothing else, it will improve their individual productivity and quality of the outcome and efficiency for sure. The reason you do this is tomorrow, when you launch a very major initiative around AI, you will get a lot of acceptance because people would have dabbled with it. Again, the analogy I drive is when in planning commission, I put a few games on the PC, right? The end goal was not for me to have the joint secretary in the government of India play games on PCs. But that was a good enough starting point so that I get adoption.
Yeah.
So one is choose an area where you will get adoption, prompt engineering, and which is what I do in many of the firms that I'm on the boards of. I call the tech teams and I say, hey, you've got a bunch of analysts, right? Why don't you teach them 8 or 10 prompts, which are going to help them every day in terms of doing their jobs, right? And let them use the prompts and let them share with everyone. I use this prompt. This is what I got. It is great. And now I have also, quote unquote, created my own prompts. Now I have moved myself to the next level.
Yeah.
So I said, at least everyone, Baba, should use the minimum number of prompts that you teach them. Then after that, let them play. Let them go and do more and more. The second area where you should do is where there is a clear impact in terms of bottom line and top line. So if you've got 7 projects, just go and rank them in terms of payback period or ROI. Where are you going to get the return? And as you're doing it, also look at ease of implementation. We use a word or a phrase which all of us called low-hanging fruit. So I would say one is drive adoption. Second is make sure choose an area where there will be a very visible ROI and payback period, which will then demonstrate to the organization that AI is delivering value to them. And pick one area, become a hero in one area, and then you'll get the support. Of course, when you pick one, 6 guys are going to be unhappy. Don't tell them you're not doing it. You tell them, look, this is a new area. This is where we are beginning. We are experimenting. We want to make sure we drive success. And sir, believe me, you are the next. You're absolutely the next priority. The next priority will again be determined by the ROI and so on and so forth. So I know that some people will be unhappy. And that's why I said, moment you drive adoption in AI across the organization, at least you'll have 80-85% people who are saying, we are learning AI. Our tech teams are fantastic. Our digital teams are fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting point about quick wins, because quick wins lower the cynicism in the organization, or it essentially helps them get over the hump of believing that, oh, it's not for me, or it won't work here in my environment. So uh, achieving some very quick wins and helping people also get over their own cynicism by giving them tools which they can use easily. It's part of change management, isn't it? It's a way to bring about change.
And Pranav, that's why I said, you're absolutely right. That's why I said that it is the people part which becomes very important. Change management is the hardest. And what I have seen out of real experiments is that if there are 70 people in a specific function, 20-25 adopt very quickly. And then it's very important to make those 25 role models and mentors to others and start publicizing, their experiences and their wins to others. And then it kind of catches on like wildfire. The last 10 or 15% people will always be tough.
That's
So I
right.
think we should just accept that.
Yeah.
There, unfortunately, you will have to get HR involved after some time, right? Because you have other fish to fry, you've got bigger problems to solve.
Correct, correct. So you find those champions who are more likely to be early adopters and empower them and give them the tools to become the champions for other people to emulate.
And then you'll see a huge, I mean, it's the same thing, early adopters, and then, you find maturity. And I've seen that succeeds. It'll take a bit of time. I would say give yourself 6 months. Don't be harsh on yourself. Don't think it's going to happen overnight. But if you look at it as a 6 month journey and say, can I get each of these functions to use AI? Give yourself 6 months. Within the first month, 25% people will come your way. Then the next 50, 60% people will take 4, 5 months. And then you move on.
That's a great point. Next question is, you may have answered that partly in the way you address some of the prior questions, but I'll put it up anyway so that you can add something which you may want to. It's about what leads to successful digital transformation initiatives. What are the success factors and what are the usual failure points when it comes to these projects? And the gentleman who asked, or the lady who asked, I won't know, mentions projects like AI, blockchain, and so on. How do you ensure success of such projects?
So first of all, I think, as I said, one has to take a systems approach. There are two buckets in which you can look at any transformation journey. One is internal, the second is external. So you have to determine, are you going to start your transformation journeys by looking at internal functions? Or are you going to really leverage the new technologies to drive new revenue streams, or by creating greater efficiencies in terms of the existing product solutions platforms that you're taking to market? So I think that's the first thing that you should determine. Now, if you go to the CEO will say, I want both, because the board will say, we want both. But you need to very clearly decide, where do you want to begin the journey? If you begin the journey by turning around and saying, look, I want to begin with the external facing piece, that means you need to clearly look at the existing processes by which you're delivering those external services to your customers. It could be through a platform, it could be through specific solution sets or SaaS or whatever else that you are using. So you need to go and really see what changes you need to bring about there. Many people will turn around and say, look, a lot of our core applications are running on premise. And if I truly have to go and leverage a lot of the AI tools, then should I be moving a lot of my core applications to the cloud and rewriting them in an AI first environment? So you need to make those decisions. They are very, very important. If you have to look at internal functions, I would say look at the existing providers that you have. Many of you are already using application software from well-known vendors. And they are the people who are also doing a lot in the AI area. It's important that you understand as to what they are doing in terms of modernizing their applications so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Many times you will find that what they are building or their roadmap very much suits how you think you're going to be able to drive the efficiency. I would say, after studying both internal and external potential areas, create a white paper. And when I say a white paper, I mean a white paper, not a PowerPoint deck. Write down, like you did in school when you were asked to write an essay, on what is the AI journey that you are plotting for your firm. And the reason why I ask you to write it down is, as you start writing down, you will be able to analyze what is really required by your firm and what is not required by your firm. Because when you start writing down, you will turn around and say, look, this is my environment in HR. This is what we are doing today. This is what AI can achieve in the area of HR. This is what you know theoretically from your understanding by speaking to your peers, etc., what AI is doing. And therefore, knowing your own organization, knowing the proclivity of people to adopt new things, you will be able to write on where you can start. So please create a white paper. I can tell you the toughest thing to do is writing this white paper. And out of my experience, I can tell you, wherever I have asked organizations to put this in writing in terms of a white paper, the immediate answer I get is, of course, sir, next week we'll send you the white paper. 4 months later, the next week has not come. And the reason for this is, I know it's hard. But unless you can put all that down, because the moment you put the document together, you realize how much you don't know. Then you need to go and study. Then you need to ask people. Then you go figure it out. So I think it's very important that we document, and that will then also help us to prioritize. In terms of which technology to choose, it depends upon the problem that you're trying to solve. So, for example, if you're in an industry where traceability is incredibly critical from a compliance perspective, and you're exporting your goods and services, then obviously blockchain is mandatory whether you like it or not. So, likewise, you will get to know based on the nature of your industry whether specific technologies have to get implemented in a certain fashion or not. Because many times it's not driven by your decision, oh, this is the best technology, but it is driven by expectation of market and customer. That's why I said you need to bucket it, then you need to prioritize, you need to create a white paper, and that will determine the areas that you're going to make initial investments and what are the unique requirements of those areas given extraneous factors that will have a determining factor in terms of your technology. I don't know if I've answered the question accurately enough because it varies organization to organization. I would say don't get fixated with the technology or the tool, right? Look at the broader problem and see how you can create greater efficiency, reduce costs, help drive additional revenue, etc., etc. And all of you know these mantras.
Thank you. I think a very important takeaway from me from what you just said is that one should not look at vanity projects like creating AI grounds up for your own organization. You should leverage what you
Absolutely.
have and look at what impact it has on the business, no matter how simple it might be to deploy that. So harder is not necessarily good. I think that's a very important thing to keep in
And
mind.
Pranav, I'll tell you truly. So I had a CIO who came to me and said, Manoj, you have asked me or suggested to me that we should look at transformation of HR and finance. And he says, but where do I start? I think, and he said that I think our HR department is very ancient in terms of their thinking, their understanding, their expectations, because they're all old world HR guys. And I said that, do you know all the standard HR application providers? He said, of course, because in my prior life, when I worked here, we used that tool. When I worked there, I used that tool. I'm working here, we are using this tool. So I said, do one thing. You're a busy guy, because I knew next he would say, I'm very busy. You see, the problem is everyone is busy. So I said, look, I'll give you a simple suggestion. Take a youngster in your team and tell that youngster to call these three vendors to come and make a presentation. And they will come. Because moment you call any vendor, all of you know from experience, they'll come to your office or they will invite you to a webinar or seminar or next event. So I said that you just ask a youngster to look at 3, 4, 5 different HR applications. They're all global and some are, of course, very good Indian players as well. Study from them in terms of what they are doing, in terms of leveraging AI to modernize their own application. And moment you do that, you will get a very good view of the work that they are doing. But you need to speak to players who are playing a front end role. And I work with a number of very young firms as well. I can see some of the questions coming through. I work with a large number of very young firms. And I find that the work that they are doing in AI is phenomenal. So sometimes I think that, we also have to expand our horizon in terms of the kind of firms that we have been dealing with. The firms in the past may not be the right guys who are investing in the area of AI, but there are enough firms who are doing so. So you just have to do that homework.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I think that's a great pointer to how to manage change. One question about disruption. Do you think that too much change can be disruptive for an organization? And we are living in times of a lot of change. How often should you look to change the organization? Is a question. And I think it's a good question.
Yeah, Pranav, I think that you have to look at your own organization and look at the proclivity of employees to change. I'll give you real stories.
Mhm.
When you are, let's say, in a technology business, and you ask your coders that, look, from tomorrow, we are going to implement a tool called Jira. All of you know Jira.
Yep.
In Jira, you actually go and measure productivity of an individual. That means every individual has now ownership of making sure that they go and account for their time as one variable. You talk to anyone who is trying to get 250 people, 300, 500,000, 5,000 people in the organization to go and adopt Jira. You will hear horror stories. I'm talking of technologists. Forget people who don't come from a technology background, because when you talk about technologies like AI, a lot of people who you have to bring on board with you are people who necessarily don't come from a technology background. But even people from a technology background, when you want to do a simple change management of having guys enter their timesheet in Jira, the adoption time can be in the order of multiple months, minimum 6 months, going up to years. Because human beings don't want to change. They don't want to be accounted for their time or their effort. So even when people who come from technology, for whom technology is a profession, take so much time to affect change in an area which they know very well, whether I work in this organization or any other organization, I'll have to do Jira or some similar tool like that. There's so much resistance. So I think we must accept it's a multi-year journey. And that's why I said we need to begin with simple things. Tell people who are reading documents, Baba, use some chat GPT, DeepSeek, XYZ, whatever tool you allow in your organization, or use a small language model which you are comfortable with, but at least start using it. And then slowly, you're going to start getting adoption. So it is hard, it is tough. It could be a multi-year journey. You have to stay the course. You have to look for the quick wins. You have to look for the low-hanging fruit. You have to look for the early adopters, those functions who will see a clear benefit and value of adopting this first, and then showcasing those guys as internal heroes. So it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. And I think the leadership at the top also needs to communicate the need for change. Because too often, if things are changing, then it can make people uncertain about their own future and so on and so forth. So I think providing that steady hand at the top, I guess, is also important to help people in
Yeah,
that.
Pranav, the reality is that the pressure is huge on, many people turn around and say, oh, the CEO is a tough guy and he's making life and he wants this done yesterday. And I remind them it is not the CEO. I said, go and see who's on your board. I said, do you know what is the pressure on the CEO from the board? As far as you are concerned, you think that your CEO is the bad guy. Please remember there's huge pressure on the CEO from the board. The board is asking the CEO every quarter, what is the progress that you made in AI? And then they are whiplashing the CEO when they don't see enough progress. So the reality of life is that the CEO is not putting pressure for the heck of it, and the board is not putting pressure for the heck of it, because they're going and looking at the broader industry, and they are turning around and saying, please remember, on many of the boards there are independent directors who sit across multiple firms. So some guy will be sitting and saying, oh, I'm on the board of this Aditya Birla company. They are doing these 3 things. Or I'm on the board of this Tata company. They are doing 50 things. I'm sitting on this board. Why the hell are these guys not able to do 2 things? So please understand that there is a much broader view that people on the board are also bringing in, and therefore those pressures come. And it is for the good of the organization, because at the end of the day, the reality, and that's a message I want to share with each one of you this evening, is that you have got 2 years. If in 2 years you don't cross the chasm, your business is toast. Of course, you can turn around and say, Manoj, we are in technology. We'll move away from our current firm to another firm. But that's not why we are here. We are here to make our current firms viable and successful. So you have a 2 year window. Do your best.
Great point. It's a burning platform situation, as they call it.
Well said.
Yeah. Another great question from Saurabh Agrawal. With Gen Z entering the workforce, they have different expectations about, their purpose, flexibility, innovation, and so on. How should IT leaders redesign the leadership style as well as the organizational culture to attract and retain this generation?
Yeah, so I think it begins at home. So if you've got a growing up son or daughter, how are you tackling and dealing with them today?
Very hard.
But that's where your learning is. So the good news is, finally, we have come to an era where the way we deal with our children, we have to mimic some of that in our work environment as well. I think the wonderful thing about Gen Z is that they're very cognizant about the environment, and how they believe that they will be very happy to contribute to creating a very positive environment, which has a huge positive impact in terms of their own survivability and quality of life going forward in the future. I think they are also incredibly smart, wanting to learn new things and wanting to experiment. I remember in one organization, I was sitting there and I had given this long lecture on importance of AI and why everyone should adopt it, blah, 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 blah. And then next time I went into that organization, one of the kids volunteered and said that, Manoj, I want to come and show you what I've done. And he opened his laptop and he showed me the work that he had done in going and building an agentic AI-led application, where he had used 3 different LLMs, struck them together, created multiple agents across those LLMs to solve different problems within a single workflow. I looked at the older guys and I said, how many of the older guys have attempted even 1/3 of what this guy has done? Everyone was looking at me sheepishly. I gave an instruction to this young kid and I said that I want you to hold a tutorial for everyone over the next 3 days and teach them, how did you do what you have done? I think there is tremendous merit in leveraging the enthusiasm, the intellect, because these are all kids, these are all young adults who have been born in the digital age. They take to it like fish takes to water. And as I said, we should have no ego. We should have an open mind. We should see where they can bring their success. And really, we should measure them by outcomes rather than turning around and saying, Baba, why are you 4 hours on Facebook? I don't care. You can be 10 hours on Facebook as long as you are delivering value and the outcome. So as long as your output and outcome is of acceptable value, that is fine. I don't expect Gen Z person to be there in office after 5:30 in the evening. Because they say that we have life, you don't. And I turn around to many of them and I say, I know I remind you of dad. कि आप भी हमारे पापा की तरह हो. पापा भी कुछ नहीं करते, ऑफिस जाते हैं, ऑफिस से आते हैं रात को 8 बजे टीवी देखते हैं, कोई लाइफ ही है उनकी. So I think we just have to let them be. As long as we can make sure that we motivate them to say, beta, you have come to deliver a certain set of tasks, itna to karna hi hai. I'm not going to question whether you've taken half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, or 5 hours. But deliver, that's important. Otherwise, you're not going to get your pocket money called salary at the end of the month. Because for them, their salary is like pocket money, you know. They go spend it all. So I think we have to accept them for what they are. They bring huge value in terms of ethics, integrity towards life, towards people, human characteristics. Many of them are absolutely superlative. They mean well. We just have to somehow channel them a little bit in terms of focusing on work. That's our job. That's our task. We have to motivate them. Like our class teacher used to do in KG. If he answered a question, what would she do? Give a chocolate. Manoj answered the question. Here is an eclair. Keep chocolates in your office. That's what I recommend to all managers today. They laugh at it. I said, this guy has done something good. Did you walk up to him and give him a chocolate? Nahi kiya. So you have to drive behavior in a Pavlovian fashion. इसने अच्छा कोड लिखा, सबके सामने बोलो चॉकलेट लो, ताली बजाओ. Because they want that recognition.
Important for this generation. It's for everyone, but it's more so.
You have to recognize them and instantaneous recognition. ये नहीं वो हमारा एक recognition event होगा end of the quarter, end of the year, instant. जेब में chocolate लेके घूमो.
Yeah.
So we have to change because that's how our kids also expect. If they have done something well, they expect the parent to recognize them, give a positive stroke.
Yeah.
ये नहीं कि बेटा जब तेरी फाइनल रिपोर्ट आएगी उस वक्त मैं वो देखे तब बताऊंगा शाबाश बोलूं कि नहीं बोलूं. On this weekly test, I am not going to comment. एक बार नंबर आ गए तो क्या हुआ? ऐसा नहीं कर सकते हम. Our parents did that with us. One weekly test you did well, they would throw the report card and say, बेटा अगली बार बात करेंगे.
Reminds me of my childhood, I have to say. Another interesting question which picks up two different issues. And one is that, you know, the person who asked the question says, during last 6 months, I have met at least 20 AI vendors or partners, but hardly anyone has successful use cases which are running in 5 places at least, So how do we trust such vendors? Or by way of extension, maybe I can ask, how do you trust AI? I mean, is AI really happening? Is it a lot of hype? That's question number one. And second, what will be your advice to vendors? Because you've been on both sides. How can vendors become more, trustworthy to their clients?
I think that like in any other technology, you need to keep your safeguards in mind. So it's not surprising that whenever organizations are implementing AI, they are implementing an AI LLM along with RAG
Mhm.
or CAG. And the reason they do this is because they want to make sure that the LLM is not hallucinating and it is working on data sets which are relevant to the own organization. Now, of course, that means that you need to convert your data into a vector database and you need to do embeddings and all of that. That's important. So I would say that we need to take all of those precautions because at the end of the day, you want to make sure the results are as accurate as possible. So almost all the implementations that I'm seeing, particularly those which are customer oriented, external facing, they are all implementing using RAG. And we will have to do that till a point in time when the LLMs become better and better and better. And I'm sure maybe that's going to be a long, long. So I would say that absolutely yes, you need to take those precautions into mind. Number two is the reality is you're absolutely right. When you go to a specific vendor who has implemented AI, they may not be able to show you 5 successful use cases because it is so new. After all, when was Gen AI invented? Right? We can count its age in months, not decades.
Correct.
So the reality is that whoever is implementing today has limited experience. The vendors who are helping you to implement AI applications and AI projects also have very little experience. The key thing is collaboratively, logically, you have to work together and keep, in terms of project delivery, some additional buffer in mind. So, for example, if you think a project is going to take X months, add X plus 3. I know normally all of you add X plus 3, but this time add more than X plus 3, certainly when it comes to leveraging AI, at least as far as that part of that workflow application platform or service is concerned. So I think you're absolutely right. We don't have those quote unquote field proven. I remember when I used to sell products, customers would say, how do I know that your offering is field proven? Is it there with 100, 200 customers? That time they would say outside India. India, don't tell me. I don't believe Indian customer implementation. Thankfully, that is no longer the issue. Now people will say, don't show me US implementation, show me India implementation. The world has changed. पहले तो हमें यूएस की implementations दिखानी होती थी, right? Now they turn around and say, no, Baba, show me India because thanks to Nandan, everyone in India talks population scale. So that's the good news. But you are right. That quote unquote field proven 50 places, 100 places, that's not there. You need to go and look at the track record. Have these guys in the past been able to do things well as technology has changed? You know how to evaluate vendors. Experiment with a few, do a POC, limited POC, see the outcome of that, and then calibrate and move forward. It is going to be collaborative learning and working. There will be a risk. I totally agree on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think we have time maybe for one, maybe two questions. So this may be either the final or the semi-final, as the case may be. It's about the challenges of meeting the regulatory and legal requirements because they are multiplying, whether it's about data localization, backup availability within the geo, and so on. And especially as you go towards cloud and AI, it just complicates things. So any thoughts on how people can handle that?
I think the OEMs are thrilled because they're going to make a lot of money. The poor chaps whose sales have not been doing are going to Zoom because all of you are now talking about these and not them. You are right. In lighter vein, you're absolutely right. I think when it comes to regulatory compliance, one will have to make the investments. I think the tough job that all of you will have is to work along with your CIOs or CTOs or senior leaders to go create the business case because you need big ticket approvals which have to come in. And I think that can become a challenge. But the reality is we can't run away. We have DPDP here. The rules are getting finalized. All of us, I know, are waiting with bated breath. We know what that could mean for us. So starting from our legal department, which has to reframe all of our contracts now, taking DPDP into account to all of you as technologists, that when you are now going and doing your POCs, whether the DPDP aspects are taken into account or not, because the penalties are very huge and very significant. That is a daunting task. I agree with you. Uh, I think it's best to create a specialist team within your organization, get 2 or 3 people to fully dedicate time to looking at just these new compliances. What are the technologies that will have to get implemented to be able to meet those compliances? I know in financial institutions and banks, they already have those teams because for a long time, banks have been under pressure by the regulator to do lots of things on a daily basis, particularly around cybersecurity. But I think for the rest of the organizations, we will have to create within our technology teams our compliance specialists. So we should get ready for that.
For that, yeah. Now, there is a very interesting question, and I'm very, very tempted to ask it, though I know we are almost.
No, go ahead, Pranav. Absolutely.
It says, if a business is doing well, P&L and all parameters are good, should you still go for AI, Gen AI, LLMs for the heck of it because other companies are doing it? Or should you, remain happy and complacent that you are doing well?
When you play a game and you're winning the game, what you have to really focus on is when the next shot is going to be played in badminton, where is it likely to land? Just because you're winning the game, it doesn't mean you can become reckless. And the same applies to us, that you don't know where a new competitor of your business is going to emerge from. You might be doing very well, but you don't know. And where are they going to emerge? They're going to leverage these very technologies to really come and outsmart you. And I don't want to take examples, umpteen examples of how industries have been disrupted by these innovative players. So I think what you need to do, and that is what I do on the boards that I am on, and those firms are doing incredibly well, and they have the same thinking what you just asked, Pranav. We are doing so well. We have grown 30%. We have moved 10 points ahead of our competition. And I'm sitting there and asking them, can you tell me 3 things that AI can help you to do so that you can go and bring new revenue? They say, but we are doing so well already. What do you mean? And then I give them ideas. I said, when you spoke about your revenue, you segmented your revenue. In this specific segment, you said that our competitors are doing better, but you said that that segment is very small, it's inconsequential. I said, our competitors will invest more in AI and significantly grow because they are leaders there. And all of a sudden, a segment you're saying, which is very small, suddenly becomes half the market. Then what happens to us? No answers. So I think it's incredibly important for us as technologists to show to our business that, look, if we don't look at these areas, there could be competitors who could come in, who could outsmart us 6 months, 12 months from now. Nothing will happen to us 6, 12 months. But we have to become that business leader. We have to be the thought leader. We have to be that partner who's bringing the ideas.
Okay.
And we have to push our thought process and our points very vigorously, very vociferously within the organization. Because at the end of the day, we mean well for the organization.
It's good to
So
be a
I
good
would
manager.
say the best time to invest in AI is when you are at the top.
That's an excellent point to close the session on. I think that's a call to action for people. Thanks everyone for joining today. And of course, a special thanks to Mr. Manoj Chugh for sharing his insights and make this session a really lively and a useful one from everyone's perspective. On behalf of the members of YDMA and CIO Association who joined the session today, and of course, all of those who could not join this session today, I'd like to thank Manoj again and look forward to many more opportunities to interact on similar topics over the coming months and years. So thanks everyone again.